and gentlemen, welcome to the Pop Art Hunter channel. Today we're going to be looking at a book, Sick Little Monkeys. This is the Ren and Stimpy unauthorized story. And this book is really cool. Not only does it give a great history behind Ren and Stimpy, which I've not really read the entire book. I've skimmed and looked at little bits and pieces, but there is some cool chapters. There are some cool chapters in here that will go over some of the specifics of the actual animation cells and the process of numbering them, the episode naming conventions, etc., which we're going to look at those particular chapters along with some of my cells and also some of the Folio production packets to show you kind of how those line up and how you can use a book like this, a resource guide for those. I wish they had this for every single animation, cartoon, or feature-length movie that I collect because I would love to have all those details. But this is a pretty comprehensive guide, and let's go ahead and take a look. Okay, so let's take a look at this book a little bit further. Again, it's a really great resource guide. Eventually, I will read the entire thing. It's a lengthy book. It's quite an extensive book, and so I haven't gone through the entire thing. I've read little excerpts, etc., so on and so forth. But there's quite a few different chapters in here that go through the history of actually making the show and the cartoon. Like, what was it like? What was the process like? The production like? How did things go as far as the kind of upward and incline and then the decline of the show? You know, obviously there was some controversy regarding the show itself and the production of it and the time schedule and the executives, etc. So I'm sure it gets into a lot of those things as well. But the two pieces that I think are really cool out of this book, which you can see I also have some animation pieces from Ren and Stimpy that I'll kind of be going over, is that they really detail and outline the actual production itself and the numbering system and episodes, etc. So one of the things we're going to look at here, and again, we're not going to go through the whole book, but just especially the stuff dealing with this animation stuff because I can relate it to the actual cells themselves. So this chapter, it starts on page 69. That's a Ren and Stimpy joke, it must be. But animation IDs for Big House Blues. And what it does is a scene-by-scene breakdown of the pilot episode. And so you can see, you know, scene 1, no animation. Now, believe it or not, I've been known to lie. Scene number 2, Jim Smith, first shot of Ren and Stimpy. So they go through each scene and they do it for the entire episode. And they also have here who is the animator for that particular scene. So you can see, you know, this was one by John Kay, this was one by Armstrong, we had Feist, Bartlett, and you have which ones animated those particular scenes. So if you get a particular cell, as an example, this is Phil from Big House Blues from the pilot episode. And at the very bottom, and it's maybe a little hard to see because you can see some numbering here, and these are actually some of the background numbers that are on the reproduction background piece. But here, if you can look at it, you can see 30B. 30B. So if we take this particular chapter, which they don't do this extensive work with every particular scene, but I'm sure on the internet somewhere you can probably find, you know, a more complete version of the scene lists, but this is just a good starter. So if we look up 30B, it was animated by Feist, and it's Phil gets yanked off screen. So this shows you the number. You can correspond it here with the episode and see exactly what that scene was to make sure it matches up and that it's legitimate, first of all, and then 2, to see where in the sequence it was, who is the particular animator of it, who did the actual artwork, etc. And so it's a really cool guide and kind of a peek behind the curtain at how they did this. Now, this might not seem that impressive because you can probably go through and say, oh, well, it's roughly this scene is about halfway through, and then look at the scene number, maybe see the episode. But when you get a little bit further, in the book, they actually have an episode guide. So in this episode guide, there are a guide to the particular episodes. Now, one thing I'll note is they put their own little key here that they have sort of ranked. I think the author has ranked, maybe with the help of some of the other people, animators, an episode with 4 stars is excellent, 3 is great, 2 is mediocre, and 1 is poor. And they also have they'll put bomb. That means the episode is awful. And so Big House Blues, as an example, has 3 stars, and they go through all of the different episodes, and they give the episode name, they give the production number, the date that it aired, roughly how long it was, and then a description of the episode. Now, again, you might think, well, okay, episode 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, they split these up because each of the episodes had a couple different parts to them, or had little vignettes or little smaller cartoons within them. And so, like, for the first season, we've got RS02B, and that is Nurse Stimpy, RS03A, 03B, and it kind of goes onward. So, you know, episode 4 was one episode, but it had parts A and B, which are two different separate cartoons within that one episode. Then, as you go along, you'll see that, okay, well, this Powdered Toast Man is an example. It is RS51B. So you're thinking to yourself, okay, that's probably Ren and Stimpy 5, maybe season 5, or is it episode 5? And then the 1B, but 2B actually is, it seems like it's first in that season, and now it goes there. So the numbering all of a sudden gets confusing because, you know, during the production, sometimes they would hold off on an episode or move it around, and they would number it in a different fashion. When you get to the further episodes, like for instance, season 5, those don't actually have like a season 5. They're notated with like 317, 304. I'm just looking for the specific season here, making sure I got the right one. Come on, season 5, I think it is. So yeah, all of these are just numbered with 3, 2.5. Yeah, so, you know, so when you saw 301, I would think, okay, season 3, episode 1. Not the case. Also, there are some gaps within here. So if you look at, for instance, the Scotsman in Space, this one, Scotsman in Space, has got 2 stars, so it was, you know, okay, it was kind of good, but not great. It wasn't a bomb either. Aired January 7th, 95, 11 minutes. But one thing you're missing here is the actual production number. Well, what is the production number of that? And I don't know if at the time they didn't have that information, they weren't exactly sure about it. Well, that's where I think as animation collectors, we are preserving history and we can fill in the dates. So this is a production folio from Scotsman in Space. So you can see Scotsman in Space on here, and it's RS412. This particular one is scene 39. It uses background 39. And so this one actually fills in the gaps that are not included in the book. So I can know that this is RS412, and although I probably won't write it in there in permanent marker, I could put a little sticky note there that puts that there, and I'm filling in gaps that were not actually within this particular version of the book. And so I think, again, this just highlights, one, how thorough this book is, because they do cover so much, but how things get lost to time and how you lose some of that information and data. And even as collectors, we are helping to preserve that and preserve that history, data, and information. So I think that's really cool. So this book is really extensive. It's really great. I can't recommend it enough. I think that anybody who's a Ren and Stimpy collector should have this book. I think this is a 2nd or 3rd edition. It was not the 1st edition for sure, but I like that because I think it has more details. It also has a couple different forwards, one by Billy West and you know, another by someone else, because they have some revised stuff within here. So anyway, I think this is a great book. Make sure that you pick it up. And yeah, I can't recommend it enough. Knowledge is power, and information is sometimes very scarce when it comes to collecting animation art and cells and prints and backgrounds, etc. Sometimes you don't have all the details, and this book is one of the most comprehensive guides to a particular cartoon that I have seen out there. They have not only that background information, but just the listing of the episodes, some of the numbering conventions, and then even details like Big House Blues, where they go really, really in depth with each of the scenes and how they're broken down to show you what it would look like from the backside as an animator. A lot of the animators didn't keep maybe detailed records, thinking that it would be useful for an art collector in the future. They were just simply getting through and making the episodes, and especially with Ren and Stimpy, there were so many changes and edits and revamps of particular episodes that some of that information might have just got muddled up and mixed up and kind of pushed around, and it was just hectic and frantic. And then also, even though they may have kept diligent records, we've the decades, you know, time sometimes heals all, or time destroys animation cells or paperwork. And so I just think this is such a super cool book. I wish there were these types of resources for every single cartoon series that I collected, at least. I don't care about other people, but at least my stuff, because it just is a great resource and a great tool for that collecting process. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed looking at this particular book and some of the artwork pieces I have in my Ren and Stimpy collection. We hope you enjoyed this video, and we hope you enjoy our other videos, and we hope you like, subscribe, and comment, and all those sorts of things. Thanks for watching the Pop Art Hunter channel, and we will see you next time.